Hey everybody, welcome to the part 2 video for the production possibility frontier, or as you might know it, the production possibilities curve. Here's the thing guys, in this video I'm adopting this model to macroeconomics. And I have to say right from the beginning, it's a bit of a stretch, some of the things I'm going to do. In fact, you're going to see some things that are kind of inconsistent between this model and some of our other models in macroeconomics. Because I have to tell you, this model was not really supposed to be used for macroeconomics. No, it was supposed to show basic economic concepts such as trade-offs, scarcity, opportunity cost. It really wasn't supposed to show some of the things I'm going to say it shows in a macroeconomics class. But still, I'm going to do my best to explain it, and hopefully you get full understanding, because guys, a lot of macroeconomics classes use it, and let's get to it. Okay, so first of all, in a macroeconomics class, it is very customary to show capital goods and services on one axis and consumer goods and services on the other one. Again, right from the beginning, it's not a single good and a single good, guys. It's a group of goods and a group of goods. And what they're really trying to do, guys, is they're trying to show the entire economy. So how can I make the entire economy kind of a binary situation between one type of good and another? Well, only if I aggregate, right? And that's what macroeconomics does. It aggregates things. So we're aggregating all capital goods on one axis and consumer goods on the other axis. Hey, that's pretty much all goods for the most part. Now we've got the whole economy. That's what macroeconomics is focused on, the entire economy. Now, when it comes to the curve itself, absolutely guys, it needs to be concave to the origin. It needs to be bowed out, because we have so many different resources, all which can be adapted from one good to the other, but at different levels of adaptability. They all have different opportunity costs as you move them from production one good versus the other good. And so absolutely this curve should be bowed out from the origin, okay? Representing an increasing opportunity cost as we move from producing one good to the other one. Okay, that's what that bowed out nature of that curve is showing. Also, again, we have resources, right? And resources are key to economic growth, okay? This curve, where it's at, this frontier or curve, where it's at is based on right now the quantity and the quality of our resources, okay? Quantity of labor, just how many laborers do you have? Quality of the labor, education, training, healthcare of the labor, right? Their whole human capital, that's the labor. Change the quantity or the quality of the labor, guys, you're changing where this curve is at. Land, that's our natural resources, right? Capital, again, quantity and quality. Capital is our machinery, equipment, tools, hardware, software businesses use to produce other goods and services. Change the quantity or the quality of that capital. And by the way, the quality of our capital, guys, that's really a technology change, right? A technology improvement. Change either quantity or quality of our capital. Again, this curve is going to shift. And entrepreneurial ability. If you can change the desire to take risk, if you can change the desire to take risk, that can also shift that curve, okay? So the quantity and quality of our resources determine where this curve is at. If this curve shifts outward, that represents economic growth, an increase in our potential output, Now, the next thing, guys, is when you use this in a macro class, we're gonna say in a macro class, you cannot produce outside of this curve, and that's where it's gonna get a little bit interesting, okay? You cannot produce outside of the curve. We're gonna say the curve itself represents our potential output. And why is that interesting? Because on other graphs, such as the business cycle and the ASAD model, you actually can produce more than your potential output in the short run, but not this graph, guys. In this graph, as students, anytime we see this graph, we say, hey, that is a frontier. In no way can we produce out here. Not in the short run, the long run, we just can't produce out here, okay? When you get a PPF, that's how classes generally teach this model. Even though you get to other models, again, in macroeconomics, the business cycle graph and the ASAD model, and to some extent, the Phillips curve, it kind of shows that you can produce more than your potential output during the short run, just not the long run. So, for me, I like to say, hey, this curve is showing our long run potential output, and we have a long run focus, because in the long run, for all our models, we cannot produce past a certain level, okay? So again, for all of our models, if we have a long run focus, in the long run, we can't produce more than our potential output. We can only do so in the short run. So there's something right there kind of unique about this graph. Now, the next thing, guys, is your teachers are absolutely going to want you to know that if you're on the curve, you're being productively efficient and you are at full employment, okay? On the curve, productively efficient, and at full employment. And just by the way, you can actually say full employment is just a type of productive efficiency. It just means you're utilizing all your resources that you can, okay? So full employment and you're productively efficient. Again, if you want to roll up that full employment concept into productive efficiency, that's fine, and say, hey, that's included in productive efficiency. But I like to say we're both, okay? Now, the interesting thing is when you are at full employment, all right? So you're on the curve. I don't know, maybe you're right there, okay? You're on the curve. Do you have any unemployment? The answer is yes, okay? Because in macroeconomics, we say there's two types of unemployment. We're always gonna have at least some of it, and that is both frictional and structural unemployment. We say these are natural types of unemployment. You can never fully get rid of either one of them, so let's talk about them. Structural unemployment, okay? Structural unemployment is talking about the structure of the economy is such that at any given time, right, the structure of the economy is such that there's certain skill sets that are in demand, and those skill sets are demand in certain quantities, right? We've got specific skill sets that are in demand, and the quantities that we're demanding them, okay, is based on the structure of the economy. But what's happening? The structure of the economy is changing constantly. So every time the structure of the economy changes some, the skill sets are in demand, and the quantities that they're demanded is going to change, and some skill sets are going to find themselves now in surplus, so a skill set in surplus, structural unemployment, or obsolete altogether. And of course, if you have a skill set that is obsolete altogether, you're in surplus too. So what is structural unemployment? We associate it with a surplus of a skill set. And again, it's because the structure of the economy is changing. That's always going to happen. Structure of the economy is always going to change. We're always going to have some amount of people who are structurally unemployed getting retooled and retrained to hopefully re-enter back into being able to find a job. Now, the other type of unemployment that is natural, we'll always have with us, is called frictional unemployment. You see, finding a job is what we call a two-way match. Two-way matches take a lot of time. One-way matches, not so much. Two-way matches take a lot of time. That's a situation where both sides have to find each other. I sometimes liken it to like finding your spouse, right? If all it was is, hey, you just have to be able to find somebody and say, hey, I want you to be my wife, and you have to now be my wife, that might not take a whole lot of time. But a two-way match, the other side has to say, hey, I want you to be my partner, and then this side has to say, I want you to be my partner. We got to find each other. And so there's a belt right there. But to find each other, there's a lot of friction. It takes time. We all know finding your life partner takes time because it's a two-way match. You guys have to both agree. Same thing with finding a job. The employer that's seeking somebody, right? The job opening seeking an employee, and then there's the employee. They have to find each other and say, yes, we both agree. There's always going to be a friction with two-way matches. That search time has a friction. It's always going to be there, right? As long as we allow jobs to pick the employees that they want, or businesses to pick the employees they want, and the employee to pick the job they want, that freedom of movement and freedom to decide creates, guess what? A friction involving that two-way match. We're always going to have structural and frictional unemployment. So what am I saying, guys? When you're on this curve, we should not say every single worker is working. We actually should say we're at full employment. And when we are at full employment, guys, we still have two types of unemployed people who are actively seeking a job that do not have a job. But we have zero cyclical unemployment when we're on this curve. That's the key. Zero cyclical unemployment. Anywhere on this curve, zero cyclical unemployment. What's cyclical unemployment? That's the unemployment we get during downturns in our economy, right? Recessions in our economy because of a deficiency in demand for goods and services generally across the economy. When you have that type of unemployment, when you have a general deficiency in demand for goods and services across your economy, guys, and you fall into recession, then you move inside the curve, and yes, we say, hey, now you have cyclical unemployment, okay? Now, we have two types of major policy tools to try to fix this issue of cyclically unemployed people. They are called demand management policy tools because they focus on increasing demand for goods and services, right? What's cyclical unemployment? It's a general deficiency for goods and services. So a general deficiency in demand for goods and services, I should say. So what we have are things like monetary policy and fiscal policy, both focused, generally speaking, on increasing demand for goods and services, increasing spending. Who's spending money? The demander of goods and services, increasing spending or demand for goods and services in our economy to try to get rid of that cyclical unemployment. So again, when you're on the curve, you're productively efficient and you're at full employment, you still have some types of unemployment, structural and frictional, but you have zero cyclical. When you're on the curve, you get inside the curve, you have cyclical unemployment, and we would say you are in a recession, okay? Again, what is interesting is through our monetary or fiscal policy, or just through self-correction of the economy, guys, we should move back towards the curve. But again, with this particular graph, we're never going to get it outside of the curve in the present. The only way you can produce out here is with economic growth, a change in the quantity or quality of this stuff in the present. You can't get out here, even though on a few of our models in macroeconomics, we actually do have a way to show some level of output exceeding our potential output in the short run. This model doesn't. Never say you can produce outside this frontier in the present when you get this model. I hope that makes sense to you, and that's the PPC or PPF, however you want to talk about it. We'll see you in the next video.